James's salad with some hummus, cottage cheese, and grapes. And I'm going to talk about Rams that got top of the stack, as far as I'm concerned, against all of these other things. So that's Hail Satan, Unplanned, Drive Away Dolls, the Terror Infamy, Season 2, Ferrari, Strange Way of Life, Merci, tout, Bootlegger, and the Skit Guys. And that's a good book. I don't think I need to say.
The butterflies in Waterton Park. Is that what you found?
What?
You figure there's some overlap with the butterflies in Waterton Park?
Well, there are some in there.
That's good.
Yeah. You can see where the map, there's little maps in here. And you can see when it's like that, well, you know it's going
There'd
to
be some in
there'd
water,
be, yeah.
you'd figure.
So it I would have liked there to be a Butterflies of Alberta or an Alberta map in here, but whatever. It's a good book, even if you don't happen to be in British Columbia. So I will go through all of these movies. The first one is Rams, 2019-20, an Australian movie about sheep and the men who love them. One ram is diagnosed with a rare and lethal illness, so the government sentences all the sheep in the area to death. One man secretly keeps a few of his sheep in his home, and it's cute. There's honestly, the one with the ram drinking out of the toilet. Oh my God, that was so cute.
Like a dog.
So yeah.
Now, is this made up or is this a documentary?
No, it's a movie. So in this movie, the government really is the bad guy, and you feel compassion for the man who's struggling to hang on to those that he loves and his family's legacy, really, because that's a handsome ram, and his family has been breeding these sheep for 100 years, and they have some nice looking sheep, and then all of a sudden the government comes in and says, we're going to kill them all. And so anyway, you can see how this could happen. A person could be like, no, not all of them. You can't possibly. There's only one sick, and you're going to take all of them, and whatever. But so, yeah, feel for the guy. Rillington Place, 2018, is a BBC miniseries based on true events. In 1950, a young man was hanged for having killed his wife and baby daughter. The man had confessed once he found out that his daughter was dead, but then recants his confession. In the telling of this story, the wife was pregnant with her second baby and wanted an abortion. The couple lived in a flat above another older couple. The older man claimed that he'd been a doctor in the war when really he'd just studied first aid. It seems that he'd been offering to do illegal abortions so that he could lure young women in to strangle them. Eventually the bodies were found and the truth came out, but the older man claimed that he never killed the baby. So he did admit to killing the women, but he didn't admit to killing the baby. And anyway, the young woman who'd wanted to abort her second baby was portrayed as a bit of a party girl. The young man was portrayed as opposed to the idea of abortion and very loving towards his daughter, which I don't know.
So you're saying he was sentenced to death and it was carried out on?
Yeah. Hail Satan, 2019. It's a documentary about the Satanic Temple, a group that is less religious than it is political. And I had never heard about this, but apparently they're really big in the media and everything. It started up in the US and grew quickly. They raised a lot of good points in this documentary.
About them or the Satanic?
No, about politics. It wasn't really much about, it really wasn't much about Satanism or anything like that. It was, the Satanic Temple group, it doesn't even seem like they're really a religious group as much as a political one. But, there's a lot of groups that call themselves Christian groups that seem like they're more political movements than they are Christian movements also. So,
Yeah,
whatever.
Jesus said, folks, my kingdom is not of this world. Separation of church and state. Separate yourselves, idiots.
So you would really like watching this. And on the front it says, wickedly funny, fascinating. Jesus would want you to see this film. Everybody should see this. It's a documentary. And anyway, I really didn't understand their performance art piece with the adults dressed up as babies in front of the abortion clinic to contrast or protest against the Christian anti-abortion protesters there. What I found most interesting is that as the group grew, they really just became another religious dictatorship like the one they'd rebelled against in the first place, which is kind of funny, right? Because they ended up, I mean, honestly, if I were the leader guy of this satanic temple, whatever group, then I would have kicked the woman out too, because in the end they ended up kicking out one of their members because she really went over the top. She wasn't towing the line of their agreed whatever, their politics. She wasn't really with them. So, but it's good to watch that way, right? This documentary's great. It shows you start to finish, and what. I mean, honestly, that must be the message, right? That what they rebelled against, they ended up being. At least that's what I read from it. But worth watching. So see what you think about it. Okay, Unplanned. I'm trying to do this without emotion because I've tried to review this a few times. It has not worked out for me. Unplanned 2019 is based on true events. This is the story of a woman who'd had an abortion in her college days and then ended up volunteering for a family planning abortion clinic. Eventually, she became the director of that clinic in Texas. And well, she didn't only have one abortion because she had, I don't know if it was abortion pill thing, but she had one where she took the pills at home or something like that. Anyway, she thought she was helping people and doing good. Then she saw an ultrasound image of a fetus being aborted. She no longer thought that she was doing good there. She quit her job and joined forces with some of the people who'd been protesting outside the doors of her clinic. And rather than only having one child, the one child she'd planned to have, she now has 8, it says at the end of the movie. So that's an interesting tidbit. Driveway Dolls 2023 is a lesbian movie. They're not all lesbians in the movie because it features Matt Damon. He's obviously not one of the lesbians. So there are some creative things about this movie. Some things weren't explained well. The story was a bit silly. The lesbian sports team group kissing scene was very silly. I think the writers really missed out on some obvious and good jokes. When the women found out that the dildo was molded from the senator's penis, they should have said something to him like, others might have had cause or for concern about something like this getting out, but you had nothing to worry about. This could help you get the female vote. Anyway, you're a Republican, I'm not, and I'm a lesbian, but you've almost turned me. I mean, really, those are obvious things, but that did not come out. I can see why Matt Damon wanted to play the senator. I bet he gets more dates even easier after that, because that's quite attractive. So
that's something that Donald Trump apparently never could do, like attractive dildo or whatever, made up.
I'm not sure. I've never seen a mold of his penis.
Neither have I, but there are stories out there.
The Terror Infamy, 2nd season, 2019. Ridley Scott is responsible for producing the series about Japanese internment camps in the U.S. There's a Bakemono, evil spirit, following someone in the camp and causing all sorts of trouble. This is ridiculous.
It sounded just like nonsense.
Yeah. So, anyway. Ferrari 2024 had some artful scenes. Adam Driver did a good job playing a sleazeball two-time man with a second family outside his marriage. Still, I found the movie dull. Strange Way of Life 2024 was only 28 minutes long. It's about some gay cowboys. It could have been interesting if they'd worked on creating a story. The movie depended on Ethan Hawke. The production values were good. There just wasn't enough there to produce. 28 minutes. Oh my gosh.
What?
Yeah, I know. Merci, tout. 2020 is a French movie with English subtitles. It's a light comic drama about two sisters reunited after their father's death. Kind of boring. Honestly, if I'm going to have to read subtitles, you're going to have to give me more. Bootlegger 2021 is a French movie with English subtitles. It tried to be too political. The movie sucked to begin with. Adding the native politics made it suck more. Honestly, I've told you I like the stuff from Quebec lately. Don't change my mind. The Skit Guys 2020 is an hour of live comedy. Unfortunately, it's live Christian comedy.
Oh my god.
Why did they call themselves the Skit Guys? Why not the Christian comics? Market to your audience. No one else would be interested.
Oh.
Okay, so now I'm going to do a little bit of commentary on this, the whole thing. Those who watch the ultrasound abortion scene in Unplanned, which is very difficult to watch, even if it was CGI, may decide to turn against abortion. Those who watch Rillington Place will understand why the governments in democratic countries chose to generally support abortions in recent times. I mean, you can't have young women will be trying to find some remedy to their circumstance, and you don't want them to find the guy in Rillington Place, right? Or well, some people might, but that's awful. Awful if you think that. So anyway, Drive Away Dolls, Strange Way of Life, and possibly Rams offer other birth control alternatives for people. I'm Canadian and would guess that most abortions that occur in Canada are performed on young women between the ages of 15 and 25. Why would I guess that? Our prefrontal cortexes, the part of our brain that helps us plan ahead, aren't fully developed until we reach at least age 25. Our brains don't mature until we're at least 25 years old. We reach sexual maturity in our teens, though. Oh well, that's nature. But, I mean, that's gonna... you know what the result's gonna be, right? Many people who consider themselves to be pro-life suggest that young women faced with an unplanned pregnancy should give their babies up for adoption. In Canada, many of our citizens have dual citizenship and continue to hold citizenship in their countries of origin, where women's rights are seriously lacking, to say the least. Young women may consider the future life of their unborn baby. In Canada, if they have no choice who can adopt their daughter, will one of the dual citizen people adopt her? Will their daughter have to suffer through genital mutilation and an arranged marriage to an abusive man at age 10? That would seem like a fate worse than death to most of us here, wouldn't it? In the Terror Infamy second season, the Japanese men in the camp were drinking sake illegally. I mean, they did a lot of things illegally. And why? Why? Anyway, they said that the women had nothing to do with it.
With the drinking of
Yeah,
the sake.
they weren't allowed to drink the sake, and they had nothing to do with it, and so they didn't want them to get in trouble over it, right? And it makes sense that women shouldn't drink alcohol. This may lead to unplanned pregnancies with a woman carrying a baby with fetal alcohol syndrome. Women drink alcohol in Canada. A woman with an unplanned pregnancy would likely be worried about this possibility. If, like the women in Unplanned, the young pregnant woman might also be worried about how the birth control pill hormones will affect her unborn baby, because the woman in Unplanned, she got pregnant while on the birth control pill. And a lot of people do. So, will the fact that she got pregnant while on the pill affect the unborn baby's sexuality or their health? It's something to wonder about, right? And it's something we don't talk about. And I think we don't talk about it because we want to be supportive of gay rights and stuff like that, and we don't want to suggest that there's anything wrong with gay people. But it's, you still have to wonder about, are hormones affecting the unborn embryo? Anyway, so I mean, there's a lot to unpack watching these things. That's a big stack of things I went through there. So I don't know. Like some people might go through the terror more and look at things like, honestly, the one guy who was the story follows one man in the terror, and he ends up going to fight in the war with the Americans. Oh, and the only reason I brought up, I was constantly saying in Canada. Well, I'm in Canada, and I know that some of these movies were based out there from outside of Canada, and Unplanned was certainly from the United States. But I really don't want to talk about other countries. I know these were from there, and I'll review the movies, but I feel more comfortable talking about the circumstances in Canada than outside. Why not? So anyway, but back to the terror. When the young man who was in he was with the Americans in the war, and so, I mean, he got out of the internment camp and left behind his pregnant wife, who only went into the camp because she wanted to be with him in the camp with her unborn babies. So she wanted to be with him, and so he leaves her and her son. But anyway, there's a scene where he's interrogating a prisoner of war. So the guy is a Japanese guy, and he's really aggressive. I mean, he bit off one soldier's ear, and while he was tied up and stuff. And so anyway, there's the whole thing with honor. So the guy wants to die with honor, and there's a lot of racism. The white Americans in here are generally portrayed as really racist, and honestly, the Japanese seem to be really racist as far as I can see in here for the most part. So, or at least against white people. I don't know. But maybe that's just the times. Maybe if this were produced at a different time, race wouldn't be so much of an issue. But
I'm not so sure it's changed that much. If we check and look at the immigration policies of Japan right now, I doubt if they let many people in that aren't Japanese.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
so,
but when the guy
they can go around pointing fingers at whiteys, especially in the United States or Canada. Yeah. It's stunningly off base.
And anyway, so when the guy who the story follows, the terror story follows, when he ends up giving the guy a knife so that he could commit the thing, where you put the knife in your stomach.
Harakiri?
Yeah.
Harakiri.
So that he could have an honorable death. I mean, he should have been up on charges for that. Because he was deciding he was the colonel or something. He was the decider all of a sudden.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not his...
Yeah.
He's interrogating. He's not supposed to be deciding what happens to the prisoners. So that's anyway. What else was I going to say?
I think that death with honor thing. The only death with honor you could have had in Japan during World War II is fighting the power in Japan. If you died for Japan during World War II, fighting for Japan, you were awful, dishonorable, disgusting.
So, anyway, in Unplanned, the woman has 8 children at the end. It might be and counting. I don't know, because this movie was from a little while ago.
Yeah.
So, it could have went up from then. But if you're a couple, and that's great. If you're a couple that stays together and you have a wonderful relationship and everything, if you have 2 children, you replace yourself. So if everybody is a couple that has 2 children, they replace themselves, the world's population stays the same, which is already insanely high. So
it's probably 6 billion too many people in the world.
So if you have 8, should your rights be the same? Should you have all of the luxuries of being able to say go to a national park and enjoy nature? Because more humans equals less nature. So should you have those rights?
Should
Stuff
you
like
have
that.
medical rights?
Especially if you're here in Canada, where the Medicare is covered. Should you have those rights?
Should you have the rights to stay here if you're not a citizen? No.
There's a lot of things that you really have to think about, and people with good moral compass would think about these things. They would plan ahead for these things. So anyway, I have very different views on abortion than I did when I was younger, for reasons that I don't want to get into. But I do understand. I'm not 100% opposed to abortion. I do think that there's no way that I said women in my notes repeatedly, but really I believe girls. I don't believe that people are mature until their brains are mature. So I'm not talking about brain plasticity or anything. I'm talking about prefrontal cortex brain maturity until it's developed. So I don't think that humans are mature until age 25 at least, when their brains are mature. So I don't think that if you can't rely on, I realize that you don't want the government had to get involved somehow so that it could try to put a stop to all the back alley abortions or whatever, or things like in the one movie, terrible things like that. But whatever, there were lots of things like that going on, and something had to be done. So, but if you can't trust that you're going to go to the government, even like here in Canada, the medicals, it's covered. Abortion is covered, and you can get an abortion until you're, I think, around 3 months pregnant. So you'll want to look up into that, because I haven't since my teens. How would I? So anyway, if people can't rely on a safe abortion that's going to not affect their fertility in the future, then is it better to follow through with the pregnancy until you have the baby? it's something to think about, because if you're not going to have the option again, if that option is going to be stripped from you for whatever reason. I mean, we hear about Native women stepping up and saying, yeah, I was altered so that I couldn't have children anymore without my permission or whatever, and it may very well be happening. Or there may be a lot of people not stepping up that it happened to them, but they don't know why it happened to them. It could be that the doctors thought the young women were from a poor background. They didn't want maybe they thought they were trying to help. Maybe they thought they were doing a good thing. But anyway, I don't really have anything else to talk about, so I'm gonna leave this over to you, I guess.
Well, I think there's 2.5 minutes left. Let's just check and see.
Oh, you're pretty good with the time. It's at 26 minutes, so you have 2 minutes and 51. No. 2 minutes 51.
It's 26 out of 30. It would be 350 or something.
Well,
Anyway, I wasn't
out of
far off.
29.
So, have you got the cover of that Brian Jones Rolling Stones thing?
You wanted to talk about that for? No, I don't.
Anyway, I'll mention that I saw it.
Okay.
So I saw a pretty good documentary, amazingly, from BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation. They're more or less irresponsibly left-wing now at the public expense. If you want to go around promoting anti-Semitism the way you do, promoting communism the way you do, fellow traveling the way you do, you should do the honest and the right thing and go private and stop draining the public. It's absolutely shameful that people who don't...
Okay, so that's what James is talking about now.
People who have different opinions from you shouldn't have to pay for your indiscretions. Anyway, this is a pretty good documentary. Well, it's quite good, actually. One of the better rock and roll documentaries I've ever seen. I've seen quite a few. Used to be a huge fan. And still am a fan of quite a bit of rock and roll, at least coming out of the 60s. Not so much classic rock coming out of the 70s, the stuff that was appropriated by country and western. Basically country and western up until Taylor Swift. Now whatever she's doing kind of hip hop. It was modern day country for the last, I don't know, several decades. Well, since Garth Brooks has basically just been classic rock with cowboy hats and country twang to the voices. Not very good. Anyway, this Rolling Stones thing, Brian Jones must have, maybe you've heard of Brian Jones Town Massacre or something like that. Is that a group? Rock and roll group. But he was a key member of the Rolling Stones. They say the first rock and roll drug casualty, and yeah, he really outstripped Elvis Presley, who was a major big casualty. Brian Jones went 8 years roughly before Elvis Presley did. I think they both went in the summertime or something like that. I don't know if they're